YouTubers, alright, so this is the ASRock B660M Phantom Gaming 4 motherboard. Just got this off Amazon, alright, and the purpose of the video is to basically see if it's going to ship with a newer BIOS so that you can run 13th gen. Most likely it is not, alright. I'm going to build this thing up using a, obviously installing the CPU. We've got this Thermalright CPU cooler we're going to put into it. Now, if you don't want to sit and wait, just go ahead and fast forward to the end. You'll see whether this boots up to BIOS. I will do the minimal connections to get this thing to fire up. Alright, which means we will need a graphics card because it's an i3-13100F. We'll need obviously the CPU cooler, one stick of RAM, and a graphics card. Alright, plus the cable to run to the monitor. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to pop this open. There should be a triangle right there. That's what we're lining up with on the CPU, even though it's not really that noticeable. But look at the way the text reads from left to right. All right, this triangle's down here, right? So if you follow along, keep all this stuff on the left. The I/O portion's over here. That's how you want to drop this thing in, okay? And do it ever so gently. Two hands, you know, can be better than one. I don't think the lighting is that great the way I've got it lined up, folks, so I'm even having a little problems. Let me move the light in closer. I don't know if that's going to help you guys, but it's going to help me. Alright, so once I feel like this is in, I always run my hands around the gray outer frame. And it should, you know, with the green board, it should be pretty flush, alright? Now we're going to drop this down. Hopefully the plastic will pop off. And it did not, so we're going to pop it off. This is very inconsistent, whether these things will pop or not. Put that in your box. You want to hold on to that in case you sell this. Nothing worse than buying one of these where somebody did not put the cover back on. Now let's come back because we had that little incident where we couldn't get it off, and just make sure it's nice and flush. All right, then I come in, stick my finger here, pull that down, and I am right-handed, so that's a little difficult to do it that way, but all right, so that's in there. Now if you happen to screw this up, folks, you can wreck the socket pins. All right, it's easy enough to do. You may not damage your CPU, but you will damage the socket pins. And depending on how many pins are wrecked, you may not be able to use the motherboard. All right. So we've got that in. Now we've got to build up our frame. And if you're going to use this Thermalright cooler, and you're going to keep it on here for a long time, you know, take the tape off. I'm not going to, because this thing's going to get used a couple times, and then I will end up selling this most likely. Alright, so that's the backing plate there. You can see now we have these posts popping up. Now, the important thing to do, folks, figure out, hey, which way do I want this oriented? I want the fan to be on this side, and it's going to take in cool air, blow across here, and out through the I/O. So it needs to be oriented like this. Alright. So that said, the posts on this bracket have to be aligned this way. And eventually I will use a Phillips head. We're just going to try and hand tighten that for now. And then come over to the other side and do this one. And I'm going to put these spacers in here. Just trying to be a little more efficient, right? But you guys at home, take your jolly old time, right? It's not a horse race. I'm only multitasking a little bit there because you'll get those comments like, oh, this video was too long. You talked too much. You know, you showed too much detail. But the reality is, you know, how long these videos take me to do is most likely half the time. Well, we'll just say it could take you guys 2 or 3 times longer to do these videos than it takes me, alright? Just because some of you might be like, hey, what is this part? Is this the right part? Is this the part he has? Now, I've already installed this a few times, and you can see now I'm working with my Phillips head. I'm still using my left hand to tighten. Now, I've done a lot of this, and you guys have to be super careful, right? Because, you know, let's say you can only afford one motherboard, where, you know, yours truly must have 50 in this house. If I drop this and damage this motherboard, hey, I roll on to the next one, where, you know, that might be a very painful thing for some of you guys. And so just be careful. You know, like, this is better technique, right? I've got this left hand keeping an eye on the Phillips, making sure I don't drop it. You don't want to damage the motherboard. Alright, so we've got that in, folks. Now, let's go ahead and put some thermal paste in. I'm going to use this Arctic MX4. And sadly, this you know, paste is not going to be on here very long. It's actually an absolute waste of paste. If I had some super cheap stuff lying around, I would use that, because I'm telling you, when I fire this up, most likely it's not going to boot to BIOS. Alright, so we've got our cooler. And, you know, how do I know that? Well, I've been obviously buying a lot of motherboards over the last couple months. And I bought, what do I have? I had bought 6 13th gen CPUs, I think. So we're just trying to get a couple threads on there, moving to the other side. Rotate that a little bit. Come back this side. And now, to be honest with you, I could probably hook all the other crap up and not bother with the CPU fan, just to see if it'll fire up. But if it does happen to work, there's a very slim chance. Better to have the fan on there. Alright, so this thing's nice and tight. Let's go ahead and put our fan on here. So this is the way the brackets look, okay? Let me just go ahead and demonstrate this going in here for you guys. So you have to do this twice. Alright, that goes in that hole, that goes in that hole. And notice this is the intake side. Alright, so that's how you want this thing oriented. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put this on, hopefully. These things will pop out on you, and it can drive you nuts if you don't have a lot of patience. So we will drop that down. Now, sometimes the fan can get in the way of the RAM, and that's another reason to show you this. You can see we have RAM clearance, so we'll be good. So click that on. Then I'm going to try and figure out where the, rotate this around. This is the CPU fan header, alright? And we'll drop that in like so. This can go in only one way. And just be careful. You want to go in 90 degrees and don't bend your pins. Alright. Since we're at this camera angle, let's go ahead and stick in a stick of RAM. Just some Viper DDR4. And for this one, this nice label faces out this way. Notice this is shorter than that side, and that needs to line up with the way the RAM goes in. Depending on the motherboard, both of these might pop out, but in this one, this side's fixed. Gigabyte has both of them drop in, and so you should hear her double click still, or if you do it, really quick like I did, you might not hear anything but one. All right, so we got RAM, CPU power connector here, folks. Go ahead and drop that in, and then we'll come over here. This is from our PSU, all right, 24-pin power connector. This can go in only one way. I am having problems with our camera angles. So that drops in only one way. Make sure the 20 and the 4 part are both snapped in, right? Now, we're going to need, we might need these hooked in, we might not. So there will be most likely a part 2 to this video where I will just disassemble most of this stuff except for the CPU cooler, and we will install a 12th gen, but if we get lucky, everything will work. Alright, so GTX 1050 with a DisplayPort cable already attached. On this motherboard we have PCIe 4.0, 3.0, doesn't really matter which one we stick in. This is going to run at 3.0 speed regardless, but we'll stick it in the good slot. So that's done. Now, plug your PSU into the wall, and then click that on. And then we've got one more thing to do here, folks, and that